All right, we left off at Night in the Spadefoot Toads on chapter 7, where Ben was a little bit upset because when he talked to Toby was hanging out with some people that they didn't used to like. So he got a little upset and ran out into the woods behind his house, and he was actually able to catch one of those spring peepers that were so hard to catch. So let's pick up on chapter 8. Ben is sitting in class the next morning, and Mrs. Kuchar is writing assignments on the board. The spelling words are there to be copied, but Ben's not interested. Last night, his mother found one of his favorite books, Amphibians of the World, when she was unpacking one of the boxes in his sister's room. Ben hugged it to his chest like a lost friend, then stayed up late reading and studying the photographs. He opens the book on his lap and leafs through the pages again. Spelling can wait. He turns to the section on frogs and toads in Costa Rica and finds the picture of the golden toad, whose skin is an absolutely brilliant golden orange. The book says the golden toad hasn't been seen for more than a decade. Scientists think it's extinct. Frogs are disappearing all over the world. Ben starts to draw a picture of the golden toad. His colored pencils are dull, so he gets up to sharpen them. Ryan follows him to the sharpener. Ben, Ryan whispers. Hey, Ben. Yeah? This is for you. Ryan hands him an envelope. Ben's name's on the front, written carefully in large block letters. You can open it now, but be kind of quiet, Ryan says. He's hopping back and forth from one foot to another, doing his crazy dance, waiting. Ben shrugs and opens the envelope. The card inside is the shape of a party hat. I'm having my own party, like Danny's, but different. It's in a month. I'm giving you the invitation early so you can make sure to come. Okay, says Ben. It'll be cool. We're planning all this fun stuff. We have to have it on Thursday because my mom works on the weekend. My sister will be there, but she's promised not to bother us. And my mom says we can order pizza. Ryan pauses for a quick breath, and the words keep coming. We'll have games and movies. What movie do you like? What? Anything's fine, says Ben. The party's a month away, and Ryan's already going crazy. My mom says maybe your mom should call so we can get everything set. Okay, Ben finishes sharpening his colored pencils and heads for his desk. Ryan grabs his sleeve. She should call today. And Ryan, calm down. I got your invitation. I'm coming. My mom doesn't need to call. Okay, yeah, I know. I just want to make sure because it'll be fun, okay? Okay. Ryan turns and hops back to his desk. He careens into his seat, knocking his books onto the floor. Mrs. Kuchar looks up. Ryan, she says, please keep it down. Others are working. Sure, he says. Sorry. Ben sits down. Ryan is beaming at him, and the eye not hidden by the patch is dancing. Ben puts the invitation to his desk and goes back to drawing the golden toad. Before he knows it, Ryan is peering over his shoulder. Cool, what's that? A toad, Ben says. He keeps it short, hoping Ryan will leave him alone. Cool, it's yellow. It's called a golden toad. Can I see? Ben stares at Ryan, but being stared at doesn't bother him. Please? Ryan says. Ben holds the book up. Ryan grabs for it, but drops it. Ryan, Ben says. The kid can be such a jerk. Ryan scrambles to pick it up, then starts flipping through the pages. Cool, this is the coolest book. Cool. Ryan, Mrs. Kuchar's voice is sharp. Are you doing your work? No, I'm looking at Ben's book. It's really cool. Both of you, come up here, please, she says. Ben gives Ryan a murderous look, but Ryan doesn't notice. He's already halfway to Mrs. Kuchar's desk. You two both need to get to work. Neither of you can afford just sitting around while everybody else does what needs doing. But I was trying to work, Ben says. He was the one that was talking. I just wanted to see the book, Ryan says. All right, whatever happened, put the book away. You're supposed to be doing spelling. Ben starts to protest, but Mrs. Kuchar shakes her head, stopping him. Please don't argue, just do your work. Ben goes back to his chair and sits there with his arms folded. He can hear Ryan trying to get his attention. Frankie Murley snickers. Ben doesn't look up. Right after he gets home from school the next day, Ben tosses his backpack onto the sofa and hurries into his backyard. He hikes down the trail, going past the marshy place where he caught the peeper. The sun is shining and he goes deeper and deeper into the woods, farther than he's ever gone before. He's a little nervous about finding his way back, but it seems like someone has made a trail there. It's faint, but he can follow it all right. Ben likes being alone. He'll turn back before he gets lost. The trail makes a sharp bend to the right, and Ben stops. Feels like he's been here before. About 20 yards ahead, in another trail that leads past some rock outcrops and heads up a small hill. He takes a few steps and looks around. This is the path he and Mrs. Tibbetts explored last Saturday. His family's land not only backs up to Mrs. Tibbetts' property, the two places are connected by a system of trails. He hurries up the path and comes to the vernal pool. He sits on the big rock beside it for a moment, but he's too excited about his discovery to sit still. He jumps up and takes the path toward Mrs. Tibbetts' house. Maybe he'll just knock on the door and say hi. The trail leads him to her backyard. The garage is right in front of him. Ben walks around to the driveway, but Mrs. Tibbetts' car isn't there. He looks in the kitchen window. He can see dishes in the sink and jars and plates spread out on the counter, but no sign of her. When Ben turns away from the door, he sees a car pull in the driveway. It looks familiar. The door swings open, and as soon as he sees the red hair, he knows who it is. Mrs. Tibbetts' sister-in-law. Ben can't escape. He just stands there on the walk as the woman heads towards him. "Oh," she says she sees him. "Hi," Ben says. "Who are you?" "I'm Ben Maroney," Ben says. "I'm one of Mrs. Tibbetts' students." The woman frowns. Ben looks at her and then instinctively thrusts his hand out. She looks at it like she doesn't want to take it, but then she does. Her hand is dry and bony. "I'm Mrs. Tibbetts' sister-in-law," she says. "Tabitha Turner. Where is she?" Ben shakes his head. "No one's home. I just came over to... sometimes I do work around the house for her." Tabitha Turner exhales with disgust. "Of course she's not here. What was I thinking? Just because she said she'd be here means absolutely nothing." She glances at her watch. "I don't have time for this." She looks at Ben like she's not sure why he's still here. "I'll probably just go ahead and leave now." "Well, I can't wait around here any longer," Mrs. Turner says, heading back to her car. "The woods here are really nice," Ben says. "It's a nice place." The words are out of his mouth before he realizes what he's saying. Tabitha Turner stops in the driveway and turns slowly. "Has she been talking to you about this land? What did she say to you?" "Nothing. She just took me on a walk through the woods and showed me all the things that are living around here." Tabitha Turner shakes her head again and blows air out through her mouth at a violent burst. "That woman!" She gets in her car, and Ben watches her pull out of the driveway. He goes back to the kitchen door and looks inside one more time. As he heads towards the woods, he spots the cage under the lean-to by the garage. He stops, then takes a few steps closer. There's no movement inside the cage. He approaches it and puts his face close to the wire. It's too dark in the little enclosure to see anything. Ben whistles, thinking he might wake whatever it is. "Hey," he says, and gives the cage a gentle shake. He still doesn't see anything, but he thinks he hears something move inside the closed-off part of the cage. Now he's really curious. "I won't bother them," he thinks. "I just want to get a look at what kind of snakes live in this cage." Ben looks around. Thick grass grows in tall clumps, but he sees a stick about 2 feet long lying by the side of the garage. He picks it up and very carefully pushes it through the crack along the edge of the door. He manages to maneuver the stick into a small entrance to the enclosure, but he can't get it in far enough. There's too much of an angle. Now figuring this out has become a challenge. Ben forgets about Mrs. Tibbetts' warning. He gives the cage another shake, but nothing happens. The cage door is held closed with a hasp. A twist tie, something you'd use on plastic bags, holds the hasp closed. If I open the door a tiny bit, Ben thinks, I can get the stick into the nesting area and move it around a little. Then I'll close the door quickly as soon as the snake shows itself. Ben carefully unwinds the tie in the hasp and takes it off, stuffing it in his jacket pocket. He tries to pull back on the door, but the cage is old and the door sticks a little. He gives it a harder yank and it pops open. There's still no movement from the closed-off area, so he slides the stick in along the floor, keeping the door open just enough for the width of the stick. He pushes it into the enclosure and moves it around. There's something in there. He tries to slide the stick underneath it and lift it a little. He doesn't want to poke it. Whatever it is, it's heavy, and it moves against the stick. Then he sees it. A dark triangular head emerges from the hole in the closed-off area. Ben's heart starts thumping. It's definitely a poisonous snake, but he's not sure what kind. Its tongue flicks out, testing the air in the cage. The snake freezes in the entrance of the hidden part of the cage. Just as Ben is thinking he should close the cage door, he hears a car pull up in the driveway. Mrs. Tibbetts back. He doesn't think it's possible for his heart to beat any faster, but it does. He pulls the stick out of the cage and slams the door, but it bounces back open. It's a little warped and doesn't fit very well. Now the snake is slowly pulling itself out of the enclosure. Ben's mind races in a million different directions at once. With one hand, he digs in his pocket, feeling for the little tie that sealed the door, and with the other hand, he tries to force the cage shut. He hears the car door open and close. Ben knows that Mrs. Tibbetts will come up the walkway between the garage and the house, and that she'll be able to see him from there if she bothers to look over. He gives up searching for the twist tie and presses both hands flat against the wire of the door, trying to close it all the way. The snake glides around the side of the cage. Its skin is a mottled tan with dark brown stripes. Its underside a yellowish white. The tail part is dark and a rattle on the end. Ben breathes more quickly as he sees the size of this creature, 3 or 4 feet long and as thick around as his forearm. He imagines it striking out and biting his hand. His heart pounds. Then he sees another triangular head emerge from the nesting area. There are 2 of them. Hello? Is someone there? He can't see Mrs. Tibbetts, but she must have heard him. Ben's back is prickly with sweat and fear. He shoves the door as tight as it'll go. His only hope is to distract Mrs. Tibbetts and pretend that he's just gotten here, then come back in a minute and make sure the snake hasn't gotten out. With one last push on the door, Ben steps away from the cage and walks out in a wide circle away from the garage, as if he's just come from the woods. He still can't see her. Hello? He calls out. Is that you, Mrs. Tibbetts? He heads quickly towards the walkway, keeping a distance from the back of the garage where the cage is. Oh, Ben, what a surprise! Mrs. Tibbetts is smiling. Ben waves and takes a quick glance at the cage. The door has swung wide open, but it's too late to do anything about that, at least right now. Hi, he says, hoping his voice doesn't sound too quivery. I was walking out in back of my house. I found this trail, and then I recognized where I was. Oh, how wonderful, Mrs. Tibbetts said. She's holding 2 big bags of groceries. I thought there was a way through there, but it's been a long time since I've explored that part of the woods. Here, hold these, please, while I unlock my back door. She hands Ben the bags of groceries while she fumbles with her keys. The cage is just out of view. Ben feels like he wants to throw up, but he has to stand there calmly, pretending that nothing's wrong. Why don't you come in for just a minute? She asks as she opens the door. You can put the groceries over there. There's nothing Ben can do but walk in and put the bags on the counter. I ought to get back, he says, desperate to escape. Don't be silly. You came all this way. Stay for a minute. Let me see what I got here for a quick snack. That would be great, Mrs. Tibbetts, but I really have to go. My mom doesn't know where I am or anything. Well, all right, she says, and Ben makes a beeline for the door. Oh, wait, she says, I forgot. I've got something for you. Ben follows her out the door along the walkway, terrified that she's going to walk toward the lean-to. He tries to think of something to do, some way to stop her, but she goes right to the garage, opens the door, and disappears in the dark coolness. Ben sticks his head in. The garage is piled high with things. You couldn't park a car in it if you had to. I saw it the other day and meant to give it to you, Mrs. Tibbetts says as she squeezes between a pile of tools and a stack of books. Oh, here it is. She holds up a short-handled net. This should help you with those peepers. Thanks, Ben says. Half an hour ago, he would have been thrilled and eager to tell her that he had caught a peeper with his bare hands. Now, he just wants to get away from here. That's great. I really have to go. All right, she says. I'll see you at school tomorrow. And remember, the night of the Spadefoot toads could happen any day now. I hope you'd still like to come. Yeah, sure, Ben says. He walks out of the garage with Mrs. Tibbetts a few feet behind him. Instead of heading directly for the woods, Ben hangs back, praying that Mrs. Tibbetts won't decide to go check on the cage. Thanks a lot, he says. Mrs. Tibbetts stands at her back door for a moment, waving at him. Ben steps inside and shuts it. Ben walks around the side of the garage and stops. He waits for a minute, then tiptoes back to the lean-to. The door to the cage is wide open. He sucks in a deep breath and walks over for a closer look. The snakes aren't in the outer area of the cage. He lets out his breath all at once, like he's been holding it for an hour. He glances around his feet for any glimpse of them, but tells himself they probably just slithered back into their nest. He fumbles in his pocket for the twist tie, shuts the door as tight as he can get it, and then flaps down the hasp. His fingers are shaking. It's a struggle, but he finally manages to fasten it with the tie. Ben knows he should have checked to make sure the snakes were definitely in there, but he tears across the field and plunges into the woods. Frantic to go home, he barely even glances at the vernal pool. As he approaches the path that leads to the backyard, he realizes that he's gripping the net Mrs. Tibbetts gave him. That was chapter 8.